As a professional athlete, the way to get the most respect is playing well in the playoffs. Because if we're looking at the top 10 basketball players of all time, top 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time, what separates each position on those lists is how well they performed in the playoffs. Tom Brady's regular season stats might not be as good as Peyton Manning on a per season basis, but since Tom Brady made his legend in the playoffs, that's why he's considered greater than Peyton Manning. And it goes for Joe Montana too. While era adjusted, he has some great regular season stats, they don't hold a candle to Drew Brees. But since Joe Montana might be the greatest playoff performer of all time, he's ranked higher all time. So with all that being said, today I'll be ranking the greatest performers of all time. But before we get into this video, like, comment, subscribe. This is Zaza Sports. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you clicking on this video, and let's get into it. So let's get to number 10, Von Miller 2015. The only defensive player on this list, and in my opinion, the greatest defensive postseason by an individual player ever. Because what Von Miller did in this playoffs was legendary. He led one of the greatest defenses of all time in the no-fly zone defense to a Super Bowl championship. The playoffs, Von Miller had 5 sacks, 1 interception, 2 forced fumbles in 3 games played. He had 2 forced fumbles in the Super Bowl to go along with 2.5 sacks that game, and he had 2.5 sacks against the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship and 1 interception in that game to bring his total stats to 13 combined tackles, 5 sacks, 1 interception, and 2 forced fumbles. Simply one of the greatest playoff performances of all time. Like I said, the only defensive player on this list, and he's number 10 for me. Number 9, Steve Young's 1994 playoff. Steve Young, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and up to 1994, he couldn't get it done in the conference championship. The Dallas Cowboys stomped his ass out every single time. He needed a ring, and did he perform in the 1994 playoffs? Yes, he did. Because in 3 games in the 1994 playoffs, Steve Young would throw for 623 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and had 2 rushing touchdowns. You might think those are insane stats, but this playoff run is heavily carried by the greatest Super Bowl performance of all time, where Steve Young put up a legendary 325 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions to get the monkey off his back and beating the San Diego Chargers 49-26 in the Super Bowl. Because before that, he only had 3 touchdowns. Not that he played bad or anything, but if he didn't have the greatest Super Bowl performance of all time, this would be a good playoff run. Not the all-time great one we see it as now. But that Super Bowl performance puts him in my top 10, and he's at my number 9 spot. Number 8, Kurt Warner 1999. We all know the story of Kurt Warner. He went from bagging groceries to NFL superstar and NFL MVP. And in his first season being a starter, he won NFL MVP and marched his ass all the way to the Super Bowl and one of the greatest playoff runs by a quarterback ever. The Rams faced the Minnesota Vikings in their divisional matchup, where they won 49-37, and in Kurt Warner's playoff debut, he would throw for 391 yards on 81% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns to 1 interception on 143 passer rating. And then the conference championship, where they faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and in one of the weirdest fucking scores I've ever seen. The St. Louis Rams would win 11-6. Kurt Warner didn't play good in the conference championship. Kurt Warner would throw 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions on a 60% completion percentage on a 56.2 passer rating, and even gave away 1 fumble. Jesus Christ. But he would redeem himself in the Super Bowl, where they faced the Tennessee Titans, stopped them at the 1-yard line, won 23-16, and Kurt Warner would have a 53.3% completion percentage, 414 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 99.7 passer rating to give St. Louis their first and only Super Bowl. The LA Rams don't count. Number 7, Aaron Rodgers in 2010. Now, you know Zaza Sports is very critical of Aaron Rodgers, but in this playoffs, he actually showed up, except for the conference championship. But through Aaron Rodgers' first 2 playoff games in 2010, he had 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and registered 2 back-to-back 120-plus passer rating games. And he took his team all the way to the conference championship. And unlike every other fucking time in Aaron's career, he did not choke. He kind of did. Because in this 21-14 win against the Chicago Bears, Aaron Rodgers had his worst game of the postseason, and maybe his worst game in postseason history. Because Aaron Rodgers had a completion percentage of 56%, had 244 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 8 yards per attempt, had a passer rating of 55.4, and actually relied on his defense to get him a win in the playoffs. See, Tom Brady ain't the only lucky one, but then it was Super Bowl time, where Aaron Rodgers faced the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Green Bay Packers would win their 4th Super Bowl in franchise history, and Aaron Rodgers would get his only Super Bowl he'll ever win. But in this game, Aaron Rodgers was great. He threw for 304 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 111.5 passer rating, and won Super Bowl MVP. Number 6, 2022 Patrick Mahomes. This dude won a Super Bowl on a sprained ankle. He won MVP and Super Bowl MVP this year, something a player hasn't done since 1999 Kurt Warner. So to say he was elite this year is an understatement. Kansas City would match up against Jacksonville in the divisional round, where Kansas City would win 27-20, and Mahomes won 22 for 30, 73% completion percentage, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 112.5 passer rating. And then in the conference championship, the Chiefs would match up against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Chiefs would win 23-20, where Mahomes went 29 for 43, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 105.4 passer rating. And then in the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs would beat the Philadelphia Eagles, at least the first time, and Mahomes went 21 for 27, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 131.8 passer rating to make his total playoff stats 72 for 100, 703 yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 114.7 average passer rating per game. Statistically, one of the most complete playoff performances of all time. He had clutch moments in there, he had dominant moments in there, and all around one of the all-time great playoff runs by the individual player. And if you disagree with that, fuck you, nigga. Number 5, 2007 Eli Manning. Now, hold up. Statistically, this is on par for a lot of people under it. But if we're going off of pure big dick energy, my nigga, if we're going off of pure aura, my nigga, 2007 Eli Manning has the most aura out of any playoff quarterback ever. But let's start off with the wild card round, where the New York Giants beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24-14. Eli Manning went 20 for 27, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions to send the Giants to the divisional round, where they played the Dallas Cowboys. They would of course win 21-17. Eli Manning went 12 for 18, 163 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions to send the Giants to the NFC Championship. For the first 2 games, Eli Manning was 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and I had a 110 quarterback rating in both of those games. And it would change in the NFC Conference Championship. Eli Manning didn't have as good of a performance as the previous 2 games, going 21 for 40, 251 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But at the end of the day, he's going to the Super Bowl to face the undefeated New England Patriots. And as a confirmed Tom Brady hater, my nigga, I'm so glad this ugly ass nigga didn't let Tom Brady get a fucking undefeated season, bro. Because this absolute badass Eli Manning took out Tom Brady in the Super Bowl on a 10-6 Giants squad, bro. It took almost a miracle, but the New York Giants beat the New England Patriots 17-14. Eli Manning went 19 for 34, 255 yards, and had the game-winning drive against the best defense in the NFL. Stop playing with this boy. Eli Manning in 2007 is my number 5. Number 4, Jerry Rice, 1988. This season, of course, Jerry Rice made one of his 10 first-team All-Pro appearances and had one of the greatest wide receiver playoffs of all time. In 1988, the San Francisco 49ers got a top 2 seed and started their playoff journey in the divisional round, where they would curb stop the Minnesota Vikings 34-9. Jerry had 5 receptions, 61 yards, and 3 touchdowns to absolutely embarrass the Minnesota Vikings. And then in the conference championship, they played the Chicago Bears, where they had also dunk on them 28-3. Jerry Rice would have 5 receptions, 133 yards, and 2 touchdowns in this game, helped sending his team to the Super Bowl. And once again, they would match up against the Cincinnati Bengals. They would win 20-16. Jerry Rice got 11 receptions, Super Bowl record, 215 yards, and 1 touchdown. He was named Super Bowl MVP, and this is the best wide receiver performance in Super Bowl history. No ifs, ands, or buts. But at the end of the playoffs, Jerry Rice's stats were 21 receptions, 409 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 3 games. For 4 on my list for greatest individual playoff performances is Jerry Rice. Number 3, Terrell Davis, 1997. This is the greatest running back playoff performances of all time. In the 1997 playoffs, the Denver Broncos would face the Jacksonville Jaguars in the wild card, where the Denver Broncos would win 42-17. Terrell Davis' stats in this game were 31 attempts, 184 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then they'd face the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round, where the Denver Broncos would win 14-10. Terrell Davis' stats were 25 attempts, 101 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns to go along with 2 fumbles. And then in the conference championship, the Denver Broncos would face the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they'd win 24-21, and Terrell Davis in this game would go 26 attempts, 139 yards, 1 touchdown, and average 5 yards per carry again. And this would lead to the Denver Broncos and Green Bay Packers facing it off in the Super Bowl in a classic game, where the Denver Broncos would win 31-24. And Terrell Davis's magnum opus, he had 30 attempts, 157 yards, and 3 touchdowns on 5 yards per carry again. Homie was averaging 145 yards and 2 touchdowns per game. He has the 3rd greatest playoff run by an individual player in NFL history. Number 2, Larry Fitzgerald, 2008. Larry Fitzgerald was one of the 5 greatest receivers of all time. He dealt with terrible quarterbacks throughout his career, and because of that, it limited his true potential. But in 2008, 2008, none of that shit mattered in the playoffs. Because after having 1,400 yards, Larry Fitzgerald would will the Arizona Cardinals to their first and only Super Bowl ever, putting up monster numbers. In the first playoff game, Arizona would face the Atlanta Falcons, where they would win 30-24. Larry Fitzgerald's stats are 6 receptions, 101 yards, and 1 touchdown. And that'd lead to the divisional round against the Carolina Panthers, where the Arizona Cardinals would win 33-13, and Larry Fitzgerald would continue his 100-yard spree, having 8 receptions, 166 yards, and 1 touchdown in this game. And then in the conference championship against the Philadelphia Eagles, the Cardinals would go to their only Super Bowl ever, and Larry Fitzgerald had 9 catches, 152 yards, and 3 touchdowns to lead his team to the Super Bowl. If you would have said Larry Fitzgerald is the best player in the world at this point, no one would have disagreed. So for people saying Larry Fitzgerald never had that peak, look at this postseason. And in the Super Bowl, Larry Fitzgerald tried to will the Arizona Cardinals to win, but the NFL god said nah. Larry Fitzgerald would have 7 receptions, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But sadly, no cigar, as the Arizona Cardinals fell to the Pittsburgh Steelers 23-27. But in this postseason, in 4 games, Larry Fitzgerald had 30 receptions, 546 yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns. One of the greatest postseasons of all time. In my opinion, the greatest wide receiver postseason of all time. If you have 1988 Jerry Rice over him, I can't blame you, but I prefer Larry Fitzgerald in 2008 personally. Number 1, who else? 1989 Joe Montana. In my opinion, this is one of the complete NFL seasons of all time, and in this postseason, it wasn't one game that got him there. It was 3 all-time great playoff performances, and it started in Minnesota in the divisional round, where the San Francisco 49ers would win 41-13. Joe Montana went 17 for 24, 241 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions to send the Niners back to the conference championship against the St. Louis Rams. San Francisco 49ers won 30-3 against the St. Louis Rams. Montana went 26 for 30, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions on a 125.3 passer rating to head to the Super Bowl. We're in the second greatest Super Bowl performance of all time. The Niners would put belt to ass to the Denver Broncos 55-10. Montana went 22 for 29, 297 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on a 147.6 passer rating. Absolutely blistering. And his all-around stats are insane, because in 3 games, Joe Montana had a 78.3 completion percentage, passed for 800 yards, threw 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and had a fucking 146.4 passer rating. God damn. Me personally, I don't think we'll see a greater playoff performance than this. If we do, I can't wait to watch it. But that's going to be the end of this video. Subscribe to Zaza Sports, like and comment, and I'll catch y'all boys later. Peace.